approach?
So we are talking about the path of health and great bliss now. Your question. Uh, so it is. This is something that we've discussed lately. Now there's 5 students of mine who have purified both astral body and causal body and astral bodies. So this has been discussed with them recently quite a bit. And also this is something that I have written about, like in a very simplistic terms, physical practices. For many years I have taught them and I've discussed them. And having said that, of course, so when the name of the path is health and great bliss, health of course means that your body is strong, you have sufficient vitality, your muscles are strong and flexible, so you have that kind of health and vitality. But then, and that's easy to take care of. I could take care of it a bit more because I'm a bit overweight. But having said that, I have pretty good muscle strength and flexibility nevertheless. And that's easy to take care of, exercising, yoga, gym, doing physical practice in whatever form one prefers. Having said that, the way how I teach physical practice is very specific. Just like I'm very specific how I teach subtle body practices. Because you have to know a thing or two how to do the practices, what to pay attention to. So saying with physical practices that it's not only that you are lifting weights like this or doing push-ups or sit-ups or whatever kind of movement, although this will give you health if you just do it like a very kind of very simple Western gymnastics way. If you exercise that way, it will give you health. But there's more to it when we discuss physical practices in the light of great bliss. Great bliss is my English rendition of the term Mahasukha. Mahasukha. Maha means great and Sukha means bliss or ease. And that term, it refers to immortality. It refers to the 3-body enlightenment, rainbow body, light body. And so what I'm talking about is something that I've said over the years many times is that, well, we all know this, that yoga traditions, yogic systems, they change over time, right? So, some practices are changed into something else. They change over time because lineage holders change them. and some practices are lost, right? So what is really interesting, I don't think a proper academic historical study can be done about this, because it's one of those things that, first of all, even when some practices are discussed in different texts and scriptures, they don't really talk about yogic practices from the inside, from the perspective of sensation and feeling and what they were actually cultivating. So I don't think it can be historically studied, academically studied, but okay, I will talk about, you asked about my personal practices at this point. After causal body and astral body, both of these subtle bodies are out of the picture, and there's only the third body, physical body, to work with. And the purpose of that being that this third body, physical body, is also joined in the continuum, natural continuum of the subtle bodies. Okay? So my recent thoughts about physical practices. So the main forms of physical practices in Amrita Mandala, which are the practices of the path of health and great bliss, are Amrita Asana Yoga, so yoga practices, and then immortality exercises. And really there is no need to separate the two, because the principles are same in both. But when you start learning the two, they look very different, because one is like yoga postures, asanas, and the other one, immortality exercises, are like Chinese yogic expression or form. But like I said, eventually both have the same practice principles. What are these practice principles? So there are three levels to that. One is purely what happens physically. So we are talking about moving the body, when the body is in movement, moving it as a unified whole. Moving the body as one unit. This is something that is widely discussed in internal martial arts. Internal martial arts means Tai Chi, Qigong, different forms of Qigong, many forms of Kung Fu that have this internal understanding, moving the body as one unit. So that's part of the first step of the three. And the other step of this first part is alignment. And this is related to this moving the body as one unit. Moving the body as one unit, or being in a stationary posture, whatever it might be, aligned and as one unit. Alignment means very different, it has very different meaning in Chinese yogas compared to Indian yogas. But I think that the reason why I was referring to this academic historical study is because I think that, and I know actually from my masters, that there was a time when the internal principles that are now known in China, but are not known anymore in India at all. I don't know if they were ever really properly known in Tibet, but my point is that at this moment, when we look at Chinese yogas, where there is moving the body as one unit, unifying the body, and there is alignment. What alignment means in Chinese yogas is that the joints of the body are joints, and whatever is between the joints are unified, kind of like you could say straightened together, joined together. And this is a very basic thing in Chinese yogas, but it's completely absent in Indian physical practices. The reason why alignment, maybe I will say a few words about this alignment. So Um, First of all, when we start looking at the most simplest yoga posture, that of standing up straight, stationary standing, it's called Tadasana in Sanskrit. Tadasana, it's usually the first posture in yoga class, but there is really no instruction about Tadasana. You just stand there for half a minute, maybe chant a shloka, chant few mantras, a prayer, and then you start moving, you start doing some postures. There is no instruction about Tadasana. Mostly in the Indian system, there is no instruction about internal sensation at all. It is just, how to do different postures, from different standing postures to different types of, all these many asanas. So they just usually just do one posture after the other without any instruction about what should happen internally. Okay, and that's somebody who comes from Hatha Yoga background and hears me say this might be outraged, but I'll come back to this. I'll explain why I think this way. But then if you take that same basic standing posture and go to a really skilled Qigong Tai Chi teacher, they actually have instructions for this. What should happen when you have the simplest posture, that of standing up straight. They will give you instructions. They will tell you how to align the joints, mainly the knees and hips first, so that you're standing, the weight of your body is mainly on the balls of the feet, little bit on the toes, little bit on the heels, but mainly on the balls of the feet. And when the weight of the body is on the balls of the feet, it easily connects through the knees, through the hips, through the whole back, the spine, to the arms and to the head. So you're just standing there, but it's completely different practice if you keep standing there, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour. And you have the simple instructions of alignment according to the Chinese system. Then what happens when you're just standing there is that you start feeling through this alignment of the joints and what is in between the joints that, my body feels very different. What is this? What am I feeling? What you're feeling is that the body you start to feel the body as one unit. One ball, you could say. One elastic ball, rather than feeling the foot is separate from the lower leg is separate from the upper leg, which is separate from the lower back, mid back, upper back. So there's a completely different, from the get-go, it's a completely different understanding of body work and physical practice that is absent in Indian systems and Tibetan systems, but it's really the basics in Chinese system, and how it has reflected, had influence on Korean, Japanese systems, places in there. So it's very different. So that's the first of the three. The second of the three is something that I have taught many times on retreats the last few years, physicalized concentration. I've written long articles about this and given instructions and many sessions on residential retreats about this the past few years. So E, it's written Y-I, U-E, but it's pronounced E. It's a Chinese word used in internal martial arts, which is alternative Chinese term is Peng. Peng. It's written P-E-N-G. Peng. It's pronounced Peng, not Peng, but Peng. So E and Peng. And here I'm getting to something that I'm certain how Peng or E was known in Indian yoga in ancient times. There is a practice called Mahasindhas. Mahasindhas, it's a Sanskrit term, which means sometimes bandha is translated as a lock. And usually the term bandha is used when you tighten your anal sphincter and tighten the muscle in the pelvic floor and muscle that holds urine. Those three muscles are called often bandhas. So it's like a tightener, you could say, sometimes translated as locks. But the idea of a bandha is that, do I have any rubber bands here? But you can think of a rubber band, and then if I put rubber band around my fingers like this, and then started extending my fingers, I extended a little bit, and the rubber band got tightened a little bit. So it starts pulling together when I extend it. There would be like a dynamic tension there. That's the basic idea of what bandha is. It's like a tightening, locking, sealing action. So Mahasindhas means, this is a very common term. You can look at Hatha Yoga manuals that are 1,000 years old, like Hatha Yoga Pradipika and other classical Hatha Yoga texts, and they speak of Mahasindhas. So this great seal, great locking, great tightening, great dynamic activity. And what Mahasindhas in today's Hatha Yoga of India means is that you activate the muscles in the pelvic floor, you draw the stomach in. Drawing the stomach in, it's called Uddiyana Bandha. And then there is the Jalandhara Bandha, which means placing the what is this, jaw, what is this, shin? Is it? Chin. Placing the chin to the pit of the throat. So locking the head, locking the neck. So what Mahasindhas in today's yoga means is that you simultaneously lock the head, tilt the head down, draw in the belly, and tighten the muscles in the pelvic floor. And this activity in head, belly and pelvic floor is done usually when the lungs are empty, like that. So it's usually done as like a breathing practice, pranayama practice, this kind of activity. And if you go to any Indian yoga tradition, this is their understanding of Mahasindhas, this great tightening. But I don't think Mahasindhas originally meant that at all. So things have changed there. What I think Mahasindhas means is saying what E and Peng mean in Chinese yoga, or in today's Chinese yoga. How do you apply that? What does that mean? So when you are in that standing posture, Tadasana, or you are in Trikonasana, you are in downward facing dog, you are in cobra, in upward facing dog, you are just pick a posture. And know those of you who have already learned I Pang, or those of you who have practiced Tai Chi or I Chuan or any internal martial art and have learned this, think about this. I will explain this in a moment. So you can think of any of these postures, and you stay in that posture long enough, let's say at least 20 seconds to 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. So you spend plenty of time in the posture, okay? And as you are in this stationary posture, activate that I Pang. Activate the Mahabandha. Like if you are in Trikon Asana, for example, with your legs spread, knees almost fully straightened, and then you bend the upper body, your other arm goes up, and with the other hand you place on the top of the foot, or you grab your ankle. Imagine yourself in that posture, and then just activate the whole body like you do in I Pang. And then you just stay there, activated, extended, while subtly flexing. And you stay there for half a minute, 2 minutes. And then you come up, and then you relax. It's a completely different practice, completely different experience result than if you just do the posture without doing anything internally, without doing activation. And this activation, I think, based on my how do you say, hunch, and also based on what my masters have taught me, I think this is what Mahabandha means. And it's very easy to, it's logic, because you are actually in any posture, no matter whether you are very fat and out of shape, very weak, and you can only do simple postures, to if you are very physically fit, very advanced, so you can place your feet, cross them in the back of your head, do something very acrobatic like that. Doesn't matter what the external physical form of the asana is. But if you know how to activate I Pang, Mahabandha, it becomes a completely different experience. Why? Because it activates the muscles in a subtle way, just like we do in the Vajra body. When we flex all muscles at once, like we do in Vajra body, what does it mean? It means that, when we have, for example, here we have bicep and tricep. I use bicep to do this movement, to contract. I use tricep to extend. So we use muscles of the both sides. If we flex both, so if with my arm I'm both extending and flexing at the same time, you get a very unique way of activating not only muscles here, but in the whole arm. And when you do the same thing with your whole body, it means that all muscles and muscle groups, well, most of the muscles anyway, get activated at the same time. So physically you get a workout from doing Vajra body, but there is also the effects in the subtle bodies, mainly the astral body, because the meridian system is inside the physical body, right? So it affects greatly these two bodies, but there's also the dynamic element of cutting through, because you are putting your willpower, putting concentration into doing that. So it cuts through even what is going on in the mind, in the causal body. My point that I'm getting to is that If you do Vajra body in a very, very gentle manner, so you flex your muscles, like, let's say 5% of your maximum capacity. If you do that same Trikonasana or any other posture and you flex your muscles, so you are contracting and extending at the same time with all muscles, and you spend that half a minute there, this is already completely different than just staying there and counting breaths in the posture. But this, what we do in Vajra body, the way how I teach it is that first students, beginners, they just start flexing their muscles and activating their bodies, like I said in the basic instruction. And then when you have done it for some time, from months to maybe a year or something, then I can tell them that, okay, now start lessening that muscle contraction. Start putting less volume into that squeeze. And what happens is that people can discover that they are actually able to, I wonder if it's a small camera field, but I wonder if you can see what I'm doing here. So I'm not doing anything now, but see if you can pick this up. Can you feel that? So I'm relaxing. And now I'm using Pang Mahabandha. So I'm doing Vajra body, and the muscles are just slightly getting activated, but not in a way like you would use muscles in the gym. They get activated a little bit, but not fully. So we are here talking about with muscle activation and Pang Mahabandha. We are already talking two of those steps, two levels of physical cultivation. Okay? And then what more could I say about that? Oh yes, so my current understanding is that the reason why I have taught Pang Mahabandha, we have done standing practices on retreats, we have done walking practices, we have done lots of yoga postures, simple ones, and I have instructed this Pang Mahabandha. And the reason for that is because it is immensely beneficial when you are working with the astral body, when you are working with meridians. And especially when and if we have very stubborn habits of selfishness, all kinds of little or bigger illnesses, when we have trauma means that, like you've heard me explain, trauma means that you have some of your astral tissues have turned into stone. They have instead of being healthy, supple, subtle tissues, those tissues have hardened. So when you have these issues stored in your astral body, in your meridian system, and you learn how to activate that and then when you know how to activate the with your whole body, then you can increase the volume of that You can put more, you can increase the amount of intent. What this makes possible is that you are I still don't have the rubber band with me, but it's like if I held a rubber band here with my hands, and that's the meridian tissue, it's like doing this with the meridians. You just, not forcefully, but you are just pulling it open. You are stretching it open with the help of E. And this is very helpful, because samsara means that you're stuck with your habits, right? You have habits, you're stuck with them, and then you do some practices to unstuck from those habits. And after that, bring awareness into whatever habits they are. So, when it comes to the astral body, habits of selfishness, habits of trauma, these are very gross habits. The mental, emotional, psychological functions don't get grosser than that. And this means that because the sensation is gross, you have to use something like something very dynamic to get things flowing again. That's why I have taught E Pang Mahabandha. And you don't necessarily, in this context, you don't necessarily have to do yoga postures, but you can just activate it when you're sitting. Do Vajra body, but do it very gently. And this is, like I've explained, happens when you practice Amrita Kriya Yoga and there is Paravastha and it really connects well and you go into Samadhi, Paravastha Samadhi. It does that anyway. But if you know how to activate, how to use I Peng Mahabandha, you can just make it much faster. When you are there, that Paravastha Samadhi is, that connection is taking place, you can help the Shakti a little bit by activating your body gently at the same time. And it just flushes through the whole astral body so easily. So this is just, it's a extremely efficient way to speed up the purification of the astral body. This is the reason why I have taught I Pang Mahabandha for those of you who are working with the path of healing and light. That's the reason. It speeds things up. So physical alignment, unification. 2, I Pang Mahabandha. 3, should I say, spiritualization of the physical body, of physical tissues. Now we're getting to your question, Matteo. So, first of all, let's think of the Immortals. Immortals are Mahasiddhas. In Taoist system, in Chinese system, they are called Xian, Immortals. Xian, the character for immortal, it literally means a mountain person, mountain man. So these are like adepts of the mountains. Xian, Immortals. But, we are talking about, like I said earlier, light body, rainbow body, threefold enlightenment here, where the physical body is also joined in the continuum with the 2 subtle bodies. And here I already said, you cannot join the physical body as a continuum unless the other 2 are already, for the lack of a better term, enlightened, released. So there is no point trying to, well, maybe there is some point, maybe there is some benefit, but there is a reason why like the 5 poisons are turned into 5 wisdoms, meaning the 2 subtle bodies are purified and released into their natural state, thus establishing the twofold enlightenment before taking a further step to the threefold enlightenment, which includes the physical body. Does that point make sense? I see that many of you are just closing eyes, like are you getting sleepy or bored, or you just don't want to be here? I'm joking a little bit. But I hope you're listening. I hope you're getting what I'm saying. But my point is that there is no rainbow body without fully purifying the 2 subtle bodies first. You just can't do it. You will not be successful unless your mind, your energetics are resting in natural ease 100% 24/7. Okay? So, but if they are, and when they are, then this spiritualization of the physical body becomes possible. Then it's very easy to simply join the physical body with all its tissues, soft tissues, hard tissues, organs, everything into the continuum. And how to do that? At this point, you don't really need I, Peng, Mahabandha anymore. It's my experience at this moment is that there is not really benefit in doing that. But there is benefit in other practices, physical practices. And now, when I speak of physical practices, it is completely different. Like I use that example of like in the gym using a weight, and then you're just doing this with the weight, getting an exercise for your bicep and your arm. We are talking about a completely different type of physical cultivation because there is Buddha nature supporting it. It's no longer samsaric mind, but you're actually fully present at every instance when you're doing this, or when you're doing some Tai Chi, or if you're doing yoga, if you're doing walking, running, whatever you're dancing, whatever you're doing. So it's a completely different type of exercise with a completely different type of goal and result, which is the rainbow body. So I've been teaching and explaining, giving instructions about trauma healing the past 5 years a lot, because that's what I was working on. I was figuring out the practices of the path of healing and light, and then we've been very successful with it. There are now five students of mine who have successfully done that, and 2 or maybe 2.5 of those 5 had complex trauma. So it's very, very successful work. But the reason why I mention complex trauma in this context is because, again, I think that complex trauma has always existed. But I also think that in our time, us city people, among us city people, complex trauma is much more common than it ever was in history. Like, there are so many people who have. Of course, the depth, kind of the seriousness of trauma varies. But when we speak of complex trauma, we are speaking of very specific type of trauma. I've spoken about this a lot, so I'm not going to go into that. But the point that I'm getting to is that not only complex trauma affects the meridians in a way that it creates those hardened knots that are challenging to, to bring back to life, to remove all the negativity and all the horrible memories one has. But when those knots are stored in the body and you live trauma on most days of your life for however many decades you've had it, that also impacts the physical cells. And this makes the path of health and great bliss that leads to rainbow body different than what it has been to historical Mahasiddhas of Tibet, India, China, and so on. So what happens, I spoke about this in a Lion-Faced Guru podcast recently, that how the physical cells and tissues are affected by trauma over decades is that it kind of bruises the physical tissues. Like when you punch something, there will be a bruise, right? So bruise in physical cells, it's like damage in physical cells. So my punch that carries a pressure, it does something, damages the cells, and then it takes X amount of time for that bruise to heal. Same thing with trauma. It's because we are talking about unnatural condition, unnatural, unhealthy condition. So psychologically, trauma is there. It creates all this negativity and cynicism and immense anxiety and fear and panic attacks and so on. But it also has that impact on the physical body and its tissues. We know this, when somebody has a panic attack, their stomach tightens, their shoulders tighten, everything tightens up, their, what do you call it? They might have loose stomach, they lose their strength in the limbs, in arms, legs. So we know that it has very physical symptoms, having complex trauma. But when that psychological trauma is out of the picture, it's still, I think that, I assume that even if somebody has had complex trauma, it would heal itself over time. The bruises would heal themselves over time. It might take, I don't know how many years, few years, 5 years, 10 years, I don't know. But there are also tools for this. So again, the way how I do my physical practice is that I do daily these days is immortality exercises and asanas. Both of them every day. It varies. I was just traveling in Finland a few days ago and I was doing at least like a half an hour proper opening of the body. Because if I don't do that, those bruises that are still there, they give me this lots of drowsiness, tiredness, sleepiness, even if I have slept well. But then when I do the warm-up sequence, I open up the body properly, I feel great. So through a simple warm-up set that many of you know, you can interrupt what is going on in those bruises, in those habits and patterns that still affect your physical body. It's very easy to interrupt it. And that's why I said in the podcast that, these days it's so enjoyable for me because causal problems, astral problems are out of the picture and I only have the physical body to worry with. But it's not much to worry with. Having said that, so I do immortality exercises which means that I do this kind of Tai Chi walking a lot, Tai Chi type movements a lot. I do stationary standing like in Tai Chi and I Chuan a lot. I do simple repetitive Qigong movements a lot. And then just very dynamic stretches like in Amrita Asana Yoga. There was a point that I was coming to, but it slipped my mind. Well, maybe it's coming back. But there is, just like with causal body and astral body purification, with physical body, it has twofold purpose. One is to remove the habit patterns, illuminate the habit patterns, and the second one is to activate the tissues. These two, it's the same for all three paths. Removing blockages, illuminating blockages, and activating tissues. Same thing with the physical practices. Yes, so I have spent exactly 40 years this year since I started my martial arts training at the age of 7. And it's been a pretty long journey since then. And along the way, I have learned and picked up things that I teach nowadays. I've had so many teachers from hard martial arts to soft martial arts to different types of healing, different types of oriental arts like calligraphy, and I'm just I feel fortunate to be able to put all the pieces together and make sense of it. So I kind of make sense of it in a way without all the cultural features. So you said something, Matteo, about, just a moment. Yes, what I was meaning to say is that something that I also do a lot is hammering and rolling. So this is something that you have. I have this. It's totally normal standard hammer. It weighs 450 grams. I just have this rainbow flag on it. But it's like a standard hardware store hammer. Costs €8 or something like this. But this is something I have spoken a lot over the years, that gently hammering the body, chant mantras while you're doing this. It's a fantastic way to unblock physical body, and doing the same with soft tissues, muscles. It's brilliant. This is like a classical kung fu tool. So, it's the best massage you can get. Another thing that I do almost daily nowadays is rolling. So having rollers. Onko meillä kulta tässä huoneessa rolleri? Käykö sä mun huoneesta hakemassa? Mun oven takana on yksi rolleri. In case some of you haven't seen a roller, I will show you. Yes. So here is a roller. This is like a pretty hard, like a hard plastic. Just what this is, 30 centimeters wide, maybe 12 centimeters in width, and I'm just rolling on this thing. I have different ones. Some are softer, some are harder. I have like a wooden roller is the hardest density I have, and then I have this like a maybe 8 and 10 centimeter width diameter balls made of the same hard plastic. And then I just dig into those tissues. And this is extremely useful to do in getting the energy flow in the physical body and interrupting those habits in those bruises. And the first time I did proper rolling session in last December, which was a month after my astral body cessation, bloody hell, I wasn't expecting that. But I had this, what came out of those bruises was 3 days, this just unbearable physical discomfort. Like the thing with the bruises is that when you are done with causal body issues and astral body issues, you're done with them. And even though the bruises in the physical body have been caused by stuff in the meridians, and you might be sitting or you might be doing yoga or qigong, whatever, you're working with those bruises, the material, the tightly packed energy that are the bruises, but you're not getting any spiritual or psychological insight or change from them. This is something that I realized that what the 5 poisons, the panchaklesha, what it means and what it doesn't mean. And this is the reason why full Buddhahood, Sambodhi, Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, is attained by only purifying the 2 bodies, the 2 subtle bodies. So in twofold enlightenment, it doesn't concern the physical body, but the threefold enlightenment of rainbow body, light body, it's included. So early December, that was 2.5 months ago, month after my cessation, when I did a proper rolling session and hammering session one evening, I was really digging into the physical body, and it was just unbearable physically for the next 3 days and nights. What I mean by unbearable, it felt like it's such an intense physical discomfort, such intense that it felt like being in like a torture chamber for 3 days. And I couldn't really have a conversation with Rani. I remember we were driving somewhere and we were sitting in the car, and she just tried to have like a casual conversation with me, and I had to tell her that I can't talk with you now because it's so intense internally. But if you imagine that you're in an actual torture chamber, and they apply some kind of some kind of torturing devices, that where the physical discomfort, the pain becomes so strong enough that you can't really focus on, not that you would be distracted, but you simply cannot talk about what we're going to have for lunch or something like that. It was like that, just the stuff releasing from the physical body that in my case has been there for well over 40 years. So that was the first introduction to first physical dark night. I had since I had 2 shorter ones, less intense ones, and now 3.5 months after the cessation, I don't really get, I don't get even near that physical dark night intensity as in December. Even if I try, like even if I roll the heck out of my tissues and do whatever physically to kind of aggravate, to provoke, I can't get there. So that means that, of course, people are different. Somebody who hasn't done physical practices at all or very little might have a very different experience than me, who has done physical practices more or less for 40 years. So might be very different experience, but based on these 3.5 months, it does seem to go very quickly. The healing of those bruises, and which is really, the bruises are, like I said, it's just very tightly packed energy. It's as if in places, in certain tissues, there is just unnecessary amount of energy stored. It's kind of holding the energy like this. And the process is to get the body to do this, to let go of that holding. Yeah, but it seems to go, with the help of these practices, it seems to go quite fast. So, now it's late, it's last day of February 26, and now I'm already seeing the signs of the body opening up quite easily, so that it's already nearing, like you have these cessations. You have cessation of the causal body, cessation of astral body, cessation of physical body, and these three can happen simultaneously. I'm sure it has happened to every one of you, all three bodies together. The karmas in the whole system cease. But what I'm working with is, because my subtle bodies are already ceased, working with the third body. But with that also cessations happen. And I'm very confident about the practices, that they work really well. And I'm really happy that I have already taught most of the practices, or the basic set of practices, to the Sangha. So in that sense, I don't need to start from zero when teaching physical practices. But yeah, like I said, very effective, and things look promising.
Thank you. That's a great. I took a lot of notes, so that's helpful. I think you touched on it with the energy when you're doing the rolling. It seemed, well, the first thing I'm hearing in what you're saying is intention is really important in this, and that's what I've been tracking. And a lot of the misalignments that I notice, like I do a lot of walking, and for example, I'll notice that there's a habit of throwing the legs kind of forward, and I'm not walking with my whole center. There's just a kind of throwing, and then I kind of look at it, and it's like, oh, it's a little bit of a hungry ghost kind of way of walking, like chasing something. And then when I slow that down, suddenly I become aware of some kind of holding in the hips that's always been there. And the legs are kind of covering it over by walking like that. And it seems these misalignments, they're covering over the trauma in a way, because when I then kind of
Yeah.
allow the alignment to come back, suddenly there is a huge release of energy or something that couldn't be released before.
Yes. 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 something that I could add about that, I spoke about the physical and I Peng Mahabandha, and then the third one, spiritualization of the physical body. What is, I've always felt, it's because I have had so many past lives in Taoist system also, in Taoist in China, back in the day when it was good old China, not the new China. But I've always had, because of that, I've had this attraction towards martial arts and body work and calligraphy and so on. But it is very unique. And this is what I want to see with my students who have the interest and feel similar attraction to work with the body, because I owe it to, Terayama Roshi. He asked me to, he comes from that same lineage, tradition of having spiritual and physical practices together. So I owe it to him. I promised him that I would do everything I can to revitalize the physical, spiritual practices and training. And I've now gotten to a point when I can properly do that, because the 5 poisons are out of the way and there is only the physical body to cultivate. And I've done so much like internal martial art training over the several decades. So now it's really just a matter of kind of fine-tuning, putting those little bits and pieces together, because most bits and pieces I already had, but it's also practicing physically more than I have over many years. So just getting my body kind of back online, if that makes sense. But there is something very beautiful and unique in physical spiritual enlightenment when it is expressed through physical movement. So physical movement can be dance, it can be something like Tai Chi, it can be something like stationary standing. But like I said, and as anybody can imagine, that when there's an enlightened mind within the body and you are standing from that mind that doesn't get distracted, doesn't get caught up with kung fu fantasies or other types of fantasies, doesn't get hung up on things. It's a very different kind of dance, very different kind of movement. And Terayama Roshi, I have often over the last 20 years since I uploaded those videos of him in our YouTube channel, I have kept posting and I've kept looking at the way how he moved. And even though he didn't perfect either of his subtle bodies, but nevertheless, his use of the body and his movement was something that I had never seen before or after. And this is one aspect that I have within the limits of my knowledge and understanding. Over the years I have tried to express it and kind of keep it in the teaching, in my teachings. But in future I will be bringing it more and more. There's just something very attractive and beautiful with this physical expression of enlightenment when it's expressed through movement. There is something immensely beautiful in it. And this has been forgotten or lost in Indian physical yogas. It's not really there either in Chinese yogas because they don't have the clear mind. You know, they have the I-Pang Mahabandha part, but they don't really have enlightened mind to that would release, give them relief from that I-Peng Mahabandha. So when we speak of the three levels, physical alignment, unification, I-Pang Mahabandha energetic, and three, spiritualization of the physical, like I said, you don't need I-Peng Mahabandha with the third step of becoming an immortal. You don't need the I-Peng anymore. But this is where the Chinese folks are caught up. Even when they try to demonstrate, I've seen, if you go to YouTube and search this a little bit, you can find Tai Chi practitioners and Taoist monks and Taoist masters who demonstrate this third level, but they can't. They don't know, they can't do it because their mind is still stuck in samsara. Anyway, so what I want to see in my students is the same. You know, I want to, in the best of my ability, to teach and transmit what was transmitted to me by Terayama Roshi and his lineage. And I want to see that with my students. And this is one of the reasons why we need residential training and a residential center. Because I can't teach it. I cannot teach it through the screen. I cannot properly teach it, on a week-long retreat every 6 months. It needs to be. It requires in-depth, intensive physical presence of the teacher and student. But nevertheless, this is a very important part of Amrita Mandala that has always been there. But finally, it's time to, really bring it forth and study it. And I'm really delighted to get to this point, to this stage. Yes, there is a technical term with the 3 steps, the spiritualization of the physical body. Sometimes it's simply called Wu-Yi, which means no or negation of I, negation of intent, negation of concentration. Negation of concentration, does it ring a bell? So this is, when we speak of non-meditation, in Mahamudra term, non-meditation. So this means that you're not concentrated, but you're neither distracted. Non-meditation. So Wu-Yi. Okay, I think this was enough for that question. Thank you for asking.